Hello and welcome to the Money Show, and this is our budget special personal finance corner where we are talking to industry representatives and figuring out what are their budget expectations from the finance minister. And today on the show I have with me MD CEO of Mahindra Manulife and AMC Vice Chairperson Anthony Heredia. Anthony, good evening and welcome to the show. All right, so let's start by AMFI's 16-point proposal that's been sent, and there are a lot of expectation in terms of rationalizing the tax structure and the capital gain structure. And what, according to you, are the pressing issues which are actually highlighted in the 16-point proposal sent to the finance minister from AMFI?
So, Kavita, I think I wouldn't put it as concerns. I think the thing that the industry looks forward to, firstly, is continuity of reform of the progress we've seen. So, I would say that would be the primary expectation. But we do believe we have a very significant role to play in terms of, the ability for corporate bond markets to grow. And one of the requests we would have is perhaps a rethink on the tax changes that happened on debt funds a couple of years back. I think there is a role the industry can play. And if there are tax reforms that can help that process, that would be welcome. And in terms of equity, we play a big role in terms of long-term wealth creation for investors. And so any tax proposals that help that process will also be, to my mind, a welcome step for the industry.
All right. So, talking about other issues, I specifically wanted to highlight on the debt taxation changes which we saw happening some time back. How important it is for you for it to be changed, considering the kind of inflow we are seeing in mutual funds, and the equity participation that's also going up. We know that the debt taxation, in fact, debt category in mutual fund was actually gaining momentum. But any specific demand for the change in taxation as far as debt mutual funds is concerned?
So I think we are, having said that, at a point where we believe over the next 12 to 18 months, and I'm saying this more from a fund house perspective, that interest rates will start to come off, and which is why debt fund investing makes sense. But I think genuinely, if you want investors to look at risk, return, asset allocation, debt funds can play a very significant role. And any element of taxation that can help the process, we accept that it can be long term, right? So, for example, if an investor invests in a debt fund for a 3 or a 5 year period, a similar tax structure or framework that exists for direct bonds and debentures being made available to debt mutual funds would be, I think, a very helpful step for us to be able to broad base debt investing to retail investors.
One long pending demand over here, Anthony, is also about taxation parity across asset classes. When we talk about this, what do you exactly mean, and what's the exact demand that AMFI has also presented?
No, I think the parity point is more in terms of the fact that, like I said, with bonds, debentures, etc., the fact that you hold that as a capital asset over 3 years has a particular tax element to it. Parity for that to be extended to debt mutual funds is really what the concept is about.
Exactly. So this also includes your capital gains on gold and especially international funds. This is also one area where we are looking at the capping, which has been a long pending demand again to be increased.
Yeah, so essentially the point being made is, and I just extended beyond just international funds, for funds which are investing overseas primarily in equity, or more importantly, fund of funds, which typically offer solutions to investors where the underlying funds are typically equity funds to the extent of 80 or 90%, we believe deserve to be taxed similar to equity products. And that's the parity also that we are requesting to be given adequate consideration.
Yeah, focusing more on the international investment limit and the long pending demand, it has not been met. There are various factors and a lot of consultation papers also from industry stakeholders which has been taken. So, any specific demand on raising the limit on international investments?
I would see it is that I think that's more a prerogative of the central bank to think about in terms of how it matches with their management of the reserves, etc. Uh, I think we've come a long way in terms of the currency stability, etc. And our request has always been through both our securities market regulator and directly as an industry platform to perhaps that this is now time that this limit can be extended, because really the concept is about offering investors a chance to diversify and therefore diversify beyond what they are used to investing in terms of Indian equities and fixed income to potentially products available overseas that do bring that element of risk diversification. So we continue to hope that the central bank does take a position at some point in the near future that we do have a situation where this limit can be adequately expanded.
One interesting observation, and maybe you might want to comment on this. Banks are demanding or they want fixed deposit to get the same tax treatment as mutual funds. What's going to be your comment on this?
So I've seen some commentary and some edits on the fact that perhaps mutual funds are playing a role in therefore perhaps deposit collections not being what they are. But the reality is that every rupee that comes into a mutual fund eventually finds its way into the banking system, right? So that's the fundamental point that people need to recognize. Number two, if you look at the extent of flows, particularly from individual investors, they have predominantly been in varieties of equity products, right? And equity is a very different asset class from the asset class that fixed deposits represent. So we don't think that we are in competition. In fact, we are a complement. Every rupee that is coming into a mutual fund eventually finds its way into the banking system, right? Because we do not accept cash. So effectively, every rupee that comes eventually is invested in securities and is prevalent within the banking system. So I think the banks have a valid request in a sense that obviously they play a very, very critical role in the economic journey. And anything that the government can perhaps do to facilitate deposit growth is always welcome. But I would like to stress the point that mutual funds are not competition in that space to banks. In fact, to my mind, they're a complement.
Anything to encourage women investors, since we've seen stupendous participation from women investors also, and the trajectory is just going up post COVID. So, any specific demand on those lines?
I would say, besides the women investor, I would be quite encouraged, although I'm not sure exactly how that can be achieved, for something to be done to enable the lower middle income investor to invest much more in equity products. Because genuinely speaking, if we talk very proudly of the economic journey, the fact that we potentially will become the third largest economy in the next 5 or 6 years, per capita income will rise, etc., etc. To me, genuinely, it is successful if every citizen is able to participate in that wealth creation journey, right? And so, something similar to the Jan Dhan movement in banking, if that can happen on the investing side, I would believe that's a far more powerful proposition to look forward to. And obviously, women investors, I've seen a very significant increase in the number of women investors investing. I think our industry, anyways, has a role to play in spending time, energy, and money on educating and awareness of that investor segment. But broadly speaking, if I was to take the liberty of deviating from your primary question, I think more than the woman investor, how do we enable the person at the absolute bottom of the pyramid, or maybe not the bottom of the pyramid, but towards the lower end of the pyramid, to invest in equity products and create wealth, maybe not just wealth, but just create a lifestyle for themselves that make their lives better, is for me a far bigger, I would say, expectation, or shall I say, dream that I would want the policymakers to think about.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.